Welcome back to another episode of the Apocalypse Podcast. I am one co-host, Kyle, and with me as always, my brother.
It's me. My name is Taylor.
It's a him, Amari Taylor, and today we got another special guest. Special to us, not special to the world.
Yep,
his name is Jacob
not
Johnson. Oh my god, you ruined his fucking name intro. His name is Jacob Johnson. He's a very old friend of mine. Many years, and he's a film aficionado, cinephile, guy who makes me feel like I don't know anything about films when he talks. Jake, say hello.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you for feeling honored. Today, our episode is our top 3 animated films. Little behind the scenes info here. We tried to record a podcast and little Jakey's computer took a giant shit an hour into it and corrupted all of his audio, so we lost everything.
Yeah.
And just do it again today.
I just want to emphasize too, it didn't crash once. It crashed twice.
Yeah,
it crashed twice. It crashed multiple times and corrupted my files, but because of some Chinese RAM that I inadvertently bought. That damn mainland RAM went into my PC, and I actually ended up swapping it out a couple days ago for my old stick. So there's legitimate RAM in there. It hasn't crashed in a couple days, so fingers crossed. This will actually be released, and we won't miss out on my wise thoughts about movies.
That's right. So, yeah, top 3 animated favorite animated films of all time. It can be hand-drawn or CGI, just anything basically not live action. Who wants to go first? Any volunteers? Students?
Yeah, I want to go first this time.
Nice. Okay, number 3. Start with the worst.
So,
the worst
by
of the
far
favorites.
the worst. I like each of my list items are like completely different genre and visually. So I went Pixar first, and I want both of you to. Jake doesn't know me and my taste at all. So if I had to pick one Pixar movie based on our very limited interaction, what is it? I just need to know.
If I just had to guess off the cuff, I would say maybe Inside Out.
Oh man, that was close. That's like a number 3. That almost put on there. Kyle should know. That's why, Kyle. What is my number 3?
Your favorite, your number 3 Pixar?
Mm-hmm.
I know what mine is. My instinct is Toy Story, but I don't think it is.
That's okay. Wow, Jake was significantly closer. Kyle, I will have to talk afterwards about our relationship as brothers because you don't know me.
Sorry.
It's The Incredibles. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
dude, that was my 2, you motherfucker.
Look, unfortunately, I thought that.
Fuck.
So you know what? I'll wait until you go. Let's talk about it when we're at the highest point. I'll just say, for me, The Incredibles was my favorite Pixar movie because I think it has I think like kind of their peak era where like anything they were putting out was kind of like a 90 on a Metacritic score.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the casting was really good. It was really it's funny watching it now how kind of bad it looks. But that movie, I think, is the first one that, like, I kind of got a sense of, like, it felt like a person directed it. It wasn't just an animated movie. Rewatching it, it kind of has a different sense than just, like, in my mind when I watched it as a kid, it was just a superhero movie. But it doesn't feel like, it kind of has, like, a spy movie, like, kind of a James Bond kind of vibe to it, which I realize is, like, a stylistic choice, and it's something that really, like, it's the first animated movie I noticed it in, but I won't go into too much detail because especially if it's on your number 2, Kyle.
Yeah, it's my number 2.
I will say it was Inside Out up until like just a bit ago. Just because
why don't we do that then?
Yeah,
since
sure. Okay.
Yeah, like just do a quick swap. Also, one thing I do want to say for context is that this is going back earlier. Jake is my friend. He is not Taylor's friend. Taylor.
Ow. Oh, God.
No, sorry. It's over, man. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so you need to be careful how you talk to. No,
yeah, you're right.
No, just because it might be weird for any
Yes.
non-close friend listeners out there if they exist, is that
Oh, that's
yeah,
true.
like I'm the younger brother to Taylor. Taylor had his own friend group and was doing his own thing. I had different friends in different places, and Jake is my old friend, so he and Taylor just have not interacted really that much over our lives.
Yeah.
And
I was thinking
they
about
only
this.
know each other via like Discord, basically, and we're servers, but
I was thinking about this yesterday. I
I've
was
met
like,
once.
oh my god, I've known Kyle for coming up on just shy of 20 years. So
fucking
it's like
crazy.
it's been like 19 years this year, and then I was like, damn, that means the last time that I actually saw Taylor was like 15 years ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That
Yeah.
is unsettling
Yeah.
because
A
that means
different time.
I was also still in my 20s like 15 years ago, which is not something that's not quite true, but it was damn close to being true.
What were you, like 19?
Yeah, just about.
Oh my god, alarming.
Yeah. Yeah, time.
Because that means I was like 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Were you fully grown yet back then, Jake? At 16 years old?
No.
No, I wasn't
You
even
weren't?
fully grown. I don't know if I am
No.
fully grown. I'm growing every day now, dude. You should
Yeah,
see
still
my
growing a little
kitchen.
bit. Pull-
I've been 6'1". That marked line, I've redrawn over it over and over, hoping I'd grow one day. It still hasn't happened, but
You're 6'1". There's no way. I'm taller than you.
okay, sure. I'll. You know, Kyle, I shrink my shoulders when I'm near you, just so you feel good about something.
Oh,
yeah,
my whole
sorry.
life. Wow.
Uh,
No, I thought I was 6'1". You were 6 foot. Ryan's 5'11", and Dean is 5'6".
well,
our
my
other brother.
doctors are being very insistent that I say that. So, Dr. Nakvi,
That you're 6'1"?
please
Okay.
contact Kyle.
Nice.
I think he has some data he'd like to share with you to update your files.
Well, you know, they probably didn't. They didn't have you take your shoes off. They want you to feel better about it. So,
okay, yeah. I am known for my platform heels too, so that is fair.
or it's your heavy ass head. You sleep on your side, and it's like squishing vertically.
Yeah,
overnight.
that's
slowly
true.
Over time.
Yeah, I also sleep like
Your head is like
I had-
collapsing on itself.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was to stop my
All right.
conehead syndrome. But speaking of
so
conehead
let's talk
syndrome,
about animated films. Remember, that's what we're doing.
Inside Out is my
Yes.
favorite. Then, and it was never The Incredibles. That was all cool subversion of
Ruse.
expectations.
We
Boom.
love that in films.
So I loved the casting of that movie so well because there was something really fun about just personifying. Like one, I like that it was a protagonist that's not like. I always like a protagonist isn't really a character you like in the beginning, or that they're in the middle
Sure.
of their journey. And I just really loved, like, in a lot of kids' movies when they just, like, personify abstract concepts so kids can kind of, like, learn a lesson or, like, follow along a theme thing. So I just really loved the idea of, like, as a very emotional individual, I do love the idea of, like, how important even the negative emotions are to a healthy individual and how, you know, you kind of have to experience it all. And I think I really loved the message it was sending. And it was also, I guess it's not fair to say it for Pixar, but like, I remember it really hits, like I cried during that movie, but that's not really fair.
Yeah.
You cry during almost every Pixar movie, but not The
Right.
Incredibles. I didn't, no, not The Incredibles. I wish I had more specifics to say. I love the color in that movie too. And like it was at the point where detail was getting so good in CGI movies that like all the characters have this weird like fuzzy like they look like almost like weird dolls. I don't know. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was very funny. But I think it's partially because the casting is very strong. Bill Hader and Amy Poehler and Phyllis, whose last name I don't know because she's only from The Office. Mindy Kaling. It's just a really good cast. It wasn't too long. It wasn't too sappy or sentimental. I thought it was really relatable. It was like I have nothing bad to say about it, and that's like one of my favorites. Is like I could rewatch that anytime it's on. It's always good. And it explores a lot of if you're into video games, same reason why I think Psychonauts is one of the greatest video games of all time, of like just exploring the subconscious is such a fun way because you could tell the same story over and over, but if your host is a different individual, like that completely changes the narratives that you could go among. I mean, Osmosis Jones is good for the same, like a lot of the same reasons.
Yeah.
That
Hell
movie probably
yeah.
sucks ass, but it's also, I don't care. It still rules. But anyway, that's why I love Inside Out. That kind of stuff. Better than Wall-E.
Okay.
Jake, you talk about Inside Out because I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, actually, it's funny.
You just watched it recently.
I actually watched the sequel recently, and I remember I saw Inside Out, the first one, in like weird circumstances because it was at a drive-in theater where I lived at the time in Pennsylvania when it came out, and which is not really the venue for like a Pixar movie, really. It's like in the back of a pickup truck in the summertime, but even still, I remember that movie hit me like a freight train because I was probably like maybe just almost 21, so still very young, very unmedicated, and very lost in the world. And watching a movie about a sad child was a lot and very relatable. So that movie definitely had an impact on me. I mean, I think it's still in my if I looked at my actual ranked like Pixar list, it's probably in the top 5 or top. I know it's in the top 10. It's in the upper echelon. Because it is so emotionally centered. But the sequel, I watched the sequel, which came out 10 years after the first one, and it feels completely neutered and different, which is sad. And I don't know if that's me being a jaded old man now, or if it's because they recast a lot of the characters with, like they got rid of Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I was under the impression it had everybody back.
No, yeah, it's got like Amy Poehler and stuff, and Lewis Black, but yeah, they recast. It's Tony Hale, aka Buster Bluth, as not anxiety, as Fear, and some lady I've never heard of as the Envy. But
I'll say Fear casting, not as arguably better casting. Like if I had to pick one actor for the first role, like I feel that's a pretty good Fear. I'll give you.
I mean, I like the idea. I just, in execution, I don't think it works as well, and I could definitely tell. I don't know. There was something about it that the sequel, where the first movie felt so unique and singular, and I think part of the issue is since Inside Out came out 10 years ago, Pixar has been kind of revisiting a lot of the same themes that movie brought up, a lot of the more internal, emotional stuff. We've had movies like Soul and Coco and Turning Red, like movies that are about, even like Up, movies that are about transitional points in life or internal processes, things like that. I think that has an effect, I think, just on how I perceive the follow-up, but also, it also felt like visually it was a downgrade, like they leaned on, I don't know, there's something these days with current day Disney Pixar that's like, they're leaning on a very specific style that's becoming similar across all their movies, instead of each movie kind of feeling unique.
Dude, that's an interesting thing you point out, because like that's something. It's like something I've noticed, but I could never articulate what it was that like irked me. But you're right. That
Yeah.
As things have gotten better, like everyone copies each other, and now it's all kind of indistinguishable from one another, because I feel like Pixar and Disney movies are interchangeable visually now. But they
you
are
don't know the difference like you used to know. You can't really tell anymore. I genuinely, I have no idea what a Pixar movie is now. I've seen, over the last decade, dozens and dozens of these animated movies come out, and I never know, like, is that Pixar? Is that Disney? Is that the
and that's intentional.
DreamWorks?
Yeah.
I have no fucking idea.
Because Disney, when they purchased Pixar, this is a fun little factoid, they took basically they scraped the entirety of the Pixar staff and said, now you work for Disney Animation Studios. And they took Disney Animation Studios people and said, now you work for Pixar, and we're one big happy family. And as a result, Pixar movies got a lot more kind of generic and sequel-focused and artistically more cohesive across movies. But now Disney Animation Studios movies are the ones that are more interesting. The Wreck-It Ralphs and
It all
other,
makes
you know.
sense now. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
There is a real turning point sort of right after the 2010s, right around when Up came out, where after that, you start to see the changes between the two studios, and you go, wait a minute. Cars 2 and 3 suddenly make a lot more sense now.
I do know that Inside Out 1, if I'm not mistaken, was like right before The Good Dinosaur, where I started to, I think is like kind of like the flag of like, I think whatever Inside Out 1 was greenlit may have been the shifting, and like it feels like the last kind of celebration. In a lot of ways, it feels like a celebration. Inside Out 1 to me nails the bittersweet that Pixar movies do so well. And it doesn't feel cynical. It doesn't feel saccharine. It doesn't feel. It just feels like
perfect balance.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that like they could do that 100 more times in a row and never get it again. It feels like it was lightning in a bottle. That's why when I never saw Inside Out 2. I've heard more positive than negative, especially when it's like compared to the other sequel to a movie that came out 10 years ago. It's like at worst you could say it's like it doesn't have the same soul, but it doesn't seem as bad as like I don't know. The Anchorman 2s of the world and shit like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't even think those are comparable. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I never really, I guess, put together Disney purchasing Pixar, and because I always wondered why Pixar was literally like genre-defining movies for 20 years straight, and then suddenly they just fell off a cliff, and you don't care anymore. And I didn't.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was Disney's purchase. That
The other thing is, over 20 years, you get attrition. Like, a lot of probably really smart, great people go to other animation studios or start their own thing. So it's a little bit of, like, kind of like, why is BioWare making shit games when they used to only make exclusively great stuff? Like, you can blame the publisher or whatever, but the founding guys left, like, 10 years ago. Of course, like...
Exactly.
Nobody who works at... Like, they made some statement of, like, why has there never been a Dragon Age remaster thing? And they're like, there is 0 people who worked on the original game, and like we don't know how to make it. Like we just don't. We aren't the same people, and it's like, that's something that gets disconnected. Is like that's why there's only primes for like 8 to 10 years, because that's how long most people will like stick around and before they get burned out a little bit or get poached and shit. That's my theory.
Well, if we're kind of in this realm, Studio Ghibli, on the other hand, is incapable of making bad movies, but that's because they have really long breaks between their movies usually, and they're also led by an auteur, Hayao Miyazaki, who just has been there the entire time, and he has such a distinct vision and skill set that, and I'm sure there's some Studio Ghibli movies on lists here, wink wink. I'm sure, I just realized my list is probably going to be eaten up by all of you. Fuck. Or I guess,
Kyle,
whatever. We have each other's movies on our list.
I promise you, our 3 are basically the 3 same categories. I'm positive.
Okay.
I think mine will be the most different. So
I hope so. But anyways, like when you have a singular leader who can corral people, and if people below him get swapped in and out, if you come into the crew and you have a strong individual like Miyazaki, who says like, look, this is what we're doing, I know how to do it, I just need you to get with the vision, then you can make good stuff for 40 years straight. But it's very rare for that to happen. And like even video games, you'll have the same game director for a long time, but suddenly the games feel worse, and you're like, what happened? It's like, oh, well, the lead writer left, the lead art director left, all these other things, all these other people swapped in and out. So it's like, sure, you have the same guy in charge, but maybe he is influenced by other people or whatever. I guess this is a different discussion, but anyways.
All right, Kyle, what's your number 3? Since
me?
Wait, because my number 3 became Inside Out. Was yours number 3 also Inside Out? Is that what we?
No, it wasn't.
No,
but
okay.
I can talk about it. I can talk about any movie.
That's true. All right. Well, then in that case, in my mind, for some reason, we're at this table, right? And Jake's to my left. There is no reason why I think that. That's why I feel like he's supposed to go next. No clue why, but that's what I decided.
Okay, that's fine. I could talk about my third. So my third is probably the most. I'd say probably the most obvious one on my list, which, and I'll say I had a real problem. I had not a real problem with this, but I really struggled to find. I don't even know if these are my top three. These are three that I love. These are three that like mean a lot to me. But I realized I have some real blind spots in my animation viewing. It's kind of a weak spot, and like, obviously I've seen especially growing up as a sheltered religious child. Basically all I was allowed to watch was like Disney, Pixar. So I didn't get around to a lot of like Studio Ghibli movies until the last like decade, the last couple years, or and then other random things too. It's just like I just haven't seen a lot of animation, so it was so hard for me to nail this down. But I ultimately went by what I own physically, and so number 3 for me is Ghost in the Shell from 1995.
Nice.
Directed by Mamoru Oshii. It's
of course.
I haven't seen anything else that the guy has done. I know he's made some really cringy follow-ups to Ghost in the Shell that are more like with more awkward 3D CG and stuff, and I hear it's not very good. But I've literally only seen his original Ghost in the Shell. It's basically the most perfectly paced animated movie I've ever seen. It's incredibly short. It's right to the point. It's super fucking cool. It's a movie that I think doesn't have like it has enough depth to tell its story, but it's not weighed down by over explaining anything. It's just like this cool ass cyberpunk near future story about what it means to be a person, what it means to exist. You're pretty standard like themes, but it looks good as hell. It's a fun story. The action is great. It's probably my favorite sort of like traditional Japanese, anime style movie. If I had to pick, because really it came down between do I want to put Ghost in the Shell or Akira.
And there's no way one of us has that on the list. There's no way.
Yeah, and I'm going, well, almost certainly someone is going to have Akira. So I'll put Ghost in the Shell because I actually went out of my way to buy the 4K of that movie. That's how much I like it.
I assume it was after seeing the American adaptation that really inspired you, right?
Right. You hadn't seen the original. He was like, boy, howdy. I should have a good film.
I should have prefaced this by saying, I originally was introduced by the live action film and was so moved by it. No, I've never seen it. I have strayed away from Scarlett Johansson as what's her name, Motoke Kunosagi or whatever. Like, I can't even believe that exists at all. I need to watch it. I probably should watch it. It seems insane.
I didn't know she was Asian, which is how she got cast as in an Asian movie
sucks
with
because
an
she's in
Asian
so
lead.
many
It's
cool
really cool
projects,
that she's able to chameleon herself like that.
And you think of it, and then she goes to the movies like Under the Skin and Her, and I'm just like, yeah,
right.
this is awesome. And I'm like, don't go for this movie. Just don't even audition. Come on.
Hey, man. Make like $20 million per month. Like, don't do something fucking stupid like this.
You just unforced error is what I'm saying. Like, you just didn't have to do it.
Meanwhile, the guy I think who was cast as the villain in Ghost in the Shell, like, wasn't familiar with the original and backed out immediately. I think when he realized that might be a different movie, but something like that did happen where somebody was cast in a lead role as a white guy.
Oh,
he wasn't familiar with the source material, and he then was.
Honestly,
after the backlash,
Kyle.
He was like, "Oh shit, yeah, no, I don't belong in this movie. I'm done."
I think that was the 2019 Neil Marshall Hellboy movie because there is an Asian character. There is an Asian.
Maybe that happened, but that wasn't it.
No, it was. There was an Asian character
he's
in that.
totally right. Hold on, I'm going to look this up while you describe it.
There was a famously Asian character that was originally cast with a white guy. I think it was a British guy, Ed something, and then he found out, oh my god, I'm playing this Japanese character or whatever from the comics, and then they ended up casting Daniel Dae Kim, who's a Korean American actor, in the part.
Yep. Plays Captain Ben Diamo in Hellboy reboot, replacing Ed Skrein after social media outcry
Ed
over
Skrein.
Yeah, after outcry over whitewashing. Yeah, 100%.
But the thing is this is such a common issue in Hollywood movies that it could have been basically, but I cannot believe I remember that. That's fucking stupid Hellboy movie. Cast a white guy, and then they were like, oh wait, we probably shouldn't have done that But I remember people getting mad about that with over a decade ago with Iron Man 3. They were like, oh, the Mandarin, you're supposed to be an Asian American character. It's like, he was a racist, like, Fu Manchu guy in the comics. Do you want that?
Yeah, actually, what makes that movie... Now, look, I love Iron Man 3 because I know it's a Shane Black movie now, and I just get it. And, like, at least they did... All right, this is not me trying to say Iron Man 3 was actually more clever than I remember, but Ghost in the Shell is... I actually like that you brought up the blind spot for animation because I feel like a big normie in air quotes with the three that I have. Mm-hmm. But like, because I haven't seen a lot of like I'd say like adult animated movies, and I realize that like it's just a big blind spot. So these are three that are probably more like influential, great ones that I think anybody could like Google. That's not very insightful, but I think it's maybe to highlight how much, for some reason, animation is treated as the second grade. Because, like,
oh, for sure,
the Hollywood doesn't promote them the way anyone with live actors in it. Like, that's part of the reason I think it's just not, they aren't getting made the way they should. And the ones that do get made nobody goes to see, which is too bad. So, yeah, I'm with you. I have a huge blind spot. And even within then, like, I still haven't seen Ghost in the Shell. I don't know how I've never seen it.
Whoa.
But, yeah.
You got to do that.
Honestly, I haven't seen it in a really long time, so I feel bad I'm not going to be able to contribute much. But yeah, I haven't seen it probably since I was a teenager. But I can see all the iconic scenes in my head. You know, the fight scene in the water.
Yeah.
Where she's like cloaked or fighting someone cloaked, and you have to use the splashes to figure out where they were. And the big dive off scene in the cyberpunk city where she just...
it's so cool. It's got...
Does the Assassin's Creed tower die?
Yeah, no, but it's got these, like, it's memorable because it's got, it's visually interesting. It's got these standout set pieces. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes you just want to watch a cool-ass action movie that looks cool, and that's peak Ghost in the Shell. Like that is the peak of that example in animation. I think it's just like, hey, you want to watch something sick as fuck? Like, these Japanese guys work like 60 hours a week so that they could make this in like 6 months.
Not to be like a old man thing too, but like that era of animation is just something that's like so gritty and like I don't know. That was stuff it was actively not for anyone except adults and like very existential, and I just love how good everything looks, man. Everything took so much longer to make, but God, that will always look good.
Oh yeah, there's an attention to detail, and the Japanese famously have a very specific work ethic, and that you can see show up in their media.
Yep,
it
highest suicide rate in the world, and
yeah, they're doing
they
great.
Make good animated movies for it.
They kill themselves and they don't fuck, but they make awesome art. So
they don't stop working. Pretty sad. Let's not talk about that undercurrent.
Well,
let's go to segue into my
Kyle,
third
number 3.
favorite movie. Yeah, I'm just gonna move on here. Yeah, it's Akira. We'll just cut.
Okay,
Of course it is. So
hell yeah,
good call on swapping that out.
It does suck,
list. Taylor.
I won't say
you. It is on your list?
Oh yeah, it's on my list.
Okay, so if it's higher up than mine, then I guess I'll have to do the same treatment as yours and swap it out for a different movie and let you talk about it because it's more highly on more high on your list.
Yeah.
The short thing I will say about it is it's probably one of the first hand-drawn animated movies I saw. Of course I saw Pixar movies, Toy Story and stuff growing up, and they're just so much more fun and light, and this was, like Taylor said, I mean, it felt like it was for adults, and watching it, it's weird that you're used to seeing, horror movies as being the adult stuff and things like Heat or The Thing, and you're like, those are the cool adult movies, but you didn't really think about animated movies being for adults, and this movie, it felt extremely adult, and it's very similar to Ghost in the Shell in that it's very cyberpunk. The animation in Akira might be the best animation of any animated film that's ever existed.
It's
I mean, maybe I'm being blasphemous,
no.
but it is
That motorcycle
truly-
slide has transcended time
Yeah,
and space.
it's
Iconic,
unbelievable.
There's scenes where when things blow up, if you slow it down and watch it frame by frame, it is shocking the level of detail that they put into every single frame. I mean, I'm sure somebody worked seriously like weeks just to draw one car blowing up. But like it is timeless. It will forever be the best looking thing. And I mean that is amazing. But outside of the animation, it's an insanely intense movie. I kind of compare it to The Matrix, where it's like it's tonally similar, and the way that the movie progresses, the climax feels like equally epic. And it feels adult, but it's also kind of fun, although Akira is darker than The Matrix, don't get me wrong. But, you know, Akira is a truly mind-blowing movie. If you watch it and you're not familiar with animation, or you're kind of young, even as an adult, really, it's just an astonishing movie, and it sets the bar very, very high for what an animated movie can do, how much entertainment it can bring to the table. What kind of excitement it can draw out of you. Like it's a pretty crazy film. So I know I talked a little bit long, but I didn't really touch on themes or anything more specific. So
yeah, that's a lot of the stuff I
Taylor,
wanted to hit on.
great,
So
perfect,
I figured we'd
perfect.
be good.
I thought you would. So Akira is my number 3. If we want to swap it out, I will pick my next number 3 that was eked out by Akira last second, and that's Princess Mononoke.
I
Studio Ghibli
knew
movie by
I
Hayao
knew
Miyazaki.
someone was
God
going to
damn
come
it,
in
Kyle!
with this.
Come on.
Oh, is that your number 1? For fuck's sake! All right, then we'll just move the fuck
they're
on.
both on my list, so my list has been exposed.
Yeah, no, we basically have the same list. Okay, can't talk about Princess Mononoke.
No, well, I mean,
either.
you might as well. If it's both
I
of you,
love
your list.
Shrek, bro. Shrek
Oh,
is actually
yeah.
great.
Shrek
Let's talk
almost
about
made it
Shrek.
on my
Hold on.
list.
All right, wait,
Dude,
wait. This is sincere,
genuinely.
right? Are you joking?
Yes. No,
Oh.
I mean, it's like it was funny to make it as a joke, but it is genuinely. It was
Sincerely,
in my top 5.
It is
Yes.
my number
It
4.
was
That's
pushed
why I
out.
asked.
Yeah, no, Shrek is actually fucking awesome.
It's
It's
so
so
good.
goddamn funny, and it of course it touches on so many themes that a lot of people think about and feel. It's a DreamWorks movie, which is interesting because you would think it's like Pixar, but this was back when they had pretty distinct animation styles, and you can kind of tell that it's a different company doing it than Pixar. But it feels like it's thematically very similar to Pixar movies, where it's watchable by everyone, just like the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob. Like, adults will watch it with their kids and be laughing at jokes that the kids don't understand, but then there's other jokes that everyone thinks is funny, you know, like shine your shoes, wipe your face, like that's not shine your shoe. What is that? The Duloc thing.
Yeah, it's because keep your shoes off the grass, shine your shoes, wipe your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause,
you know, like it's
because I remember that
so
joke.
classic.
I thought the pause was funny, like that was the bit, but no, it's because Shrek is so dumb. God,
yeah, it's so dumb, but it's so funny, and the voice acting is so good, and yeah, I really, really love Shrek.
Yeah, it's a huge meme. Everyone, Shrek, all the Shrek memes, but it's like no, that first Shrek movie, and by association, the second one. Although I still do prefer the first. It's like, yeah, it genuinely sort of came out of nowhere. The studio, DreamWorks, it was like a basement project. They were like, we just contractually are obligated to finish it. We're putting our B team on it. No one cares. And then it came out, and it was this huge success out of nowhere because it was so unique and funny. And it was like right at the perfect time. Because it came out like 2000, 2001, which was like everybody was hungry for more Pixar. Like 3D animation was blowing up, and everyone's like you got random studios that don't even exist anymore, like the people who were doing like the Ice Age movies. Like you got weird, random, out of nowhere things like that because there was so much demand. And Shrek is just one of those things that's lived on for now 25 years.
Yeah.
I still can't believe
Yeah.
that was an important piece of human history. Is the film Shrek?
Thank you, Steven Spielberg, for funding Shrek.
Yeah, it's weird because the thing I always say too, there's a reason why there are so many memes, because people loved it so much. Like it was like out of love. The way that like Morbius is out of hate, right? Everyone loves how much they hate it, and that's why it's memed on. But like this is like the opposite. Is because everyone loves it so much, we just like keep it alive and want to talk about it. And,
well, yeah, literally all of Gen Z like grew up alongside the stupid. You know, every subsequent movie got worse, but there are like 5 Shrek movies and like a TV spin-offs. So that means a bunch of kids were raised on Shrek.
Yeah.
And like I was a kid when it came out, but I was already, I was like 7 or 8 years old. So it wasn't like I was a toddler exposed to it, but there are toddlers exposed to it. And those are the kids making the source films about Shrek busting into the middle of the night and, molesting you.
I just want to that those kids are people who have full-time jobs and are now creating art at those studios.
I was going to say, they are adults making animation now, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just in their basement anymore. Now they're at they have a $8,000 computer making this stuff. So, truly.
Thank you, Blender. Truly, you have saved so many lives. Created
I was going to say,
jobs.
I'm sorry that Shrek has ruined an entire generation, but at the same time... Maybe
this is the beauty. This is the beauty of generational, like the passing on of art, animation, the legacy of animation. It's like it still inspires people to get out there and make their own weird shit. It still happens, even if it's under-recognized, and
I will say one of the things that's fun about it is it feels like the most 2000s snapshot. The way that like the attitude towards the fairy tale characters just puts in perspective of exactly where just sense of humor was at.
Yeah, it's a good balance of like being ironic and not taking itself seriously, but also it's never overly insincere. Like I think the general cultural attitudes kind of went way more towards that later in the 2000s, and so I don't know if it would have been possible to do Shrek, but like there's a genuine earnestness and like a heart at the core of the Shrek story that really grounds it. That it's just perfect. It's a perfect balance because it's like it's stupid, crude humor, but it's also very sweet and touching. And Eddie Murphy is a donkey,
and he fucks a dragon.
And he fucks a dragon, and they make little donkey dragon babies.
I'm pretty sure he gets raped by a dragon, and then it becomes consensual later.
Hey, man, we've all wanted
some weird stuff
to be crushed by a giant, sexy dragon
woman, okay?
I
said it was a snapshot of the 2000s culture, and let me tell you, 2000s culture was very much, you can't rape a man, so I'd say it's within...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't want to be that guy, but like reverse the roles, pretend it's a little female donkey and a big overbearing male dragon, and it's like completely different.
Oh yeah, but it's a guy, so it's funny.
It's a dude.
Yeah.
That I will say is, I think the last time Eddie Murphy would like held the like movie stardom, like I felt like the last big thing he ever was in. Anything he's in after that, to me, it was like, oh, it's like the way Bruce Willis and Steven Seagal, as they're in more stuff, you're like, oh no, just stop.
Yeah, stop.
At least Brucey had a good reason. Seagal's just a piece of shit.
Yeah, that's not fair. That was on me for comparing those two. Those aren't fair comparisons.
But honestly,
their career trajectories are similar, but the reasons for them are different. Yeah,
but like Eddie Murphy, he got lucky because this was coming at the time, a time where his career was starting to decline naturally. He wasn't getting. He had some big flops, and then in the late 90s and early 2000s, and he had to figure out what the fuck was next after making movies about fat people farting, where he played them all in fat suits.
Oh, that's tough. I don't know where anyone goes after that.
Right, and so then he ends up being a talking donkey, and it turns out that gets the bag, and so he basically could retire and have kids, and so everything he did after that was sort of a footnote. We got, what did we get, Norbit? Which I saw in theaters with my mom in 2008, where he he plays a nerdy guy who has sex with a big fat black woman, and that's the comedy in the movie.
Wait, doesn't he play the big fat black woman too?
Well, of course.
Okay,
Of course.
That's interesting.
He was kind of floundering there. It's like when Mike Myers was like, "Oh, what do I do now? Now that Austin Powers is done, and I've got Shrek money. Obviously, I've got to do the Love Guru and make sure that not a single person finds this amusing."
Yeah, he really wanted to go out with the opposite of a bang. Look, so forced retirement it's an interesting move.
Yeah, so they should be so fucking lucky that they have Shrek 1 and to an extent Shrek 2, and I guess the other ones, to sustain them, because otherwise we wouldn't know who Mike Myers and fucking Eddie Murphy are. They'd be like two guys who peaked in the 80s and 90s. And now we're getting they're bringing them back. We're going to get elderly Shrek and elderly Donkey in a new Shrek movie.
Yep, Shrek 5.
And they're going to sound all fucked up and old, and it's going to be like watching The Simpsons in 2025, where you're like...
this is going to sound very
I don't remember Marge sounding 87, but here we go.
This is going to sound very political.
Uh-huh.
It reminds me of
politics.
Just the inability to just let the next generation start something on their own.
Yeah, it is.
Let's not keep doing the same thing for 30 years. We, as millennials, should pass the torch creative on to the Gen Z's ideas. Yeah. Let's not remake the movie. Like, I know
no, the millennials aren't in charge of anything. That's the problem. Is it's still the baby boomer people that are alive controlling everything. So they're still doing.
Look, all I'm saying is
the same shit. That's why Gladiator fucking 2 comes out.
No, the reason
20 years later,
Kyle, the reason Gladiator 2 comes out is because millennials are so obsessed with nostalgia they can't think of new things. They just want to rewatch the things they've already watched and quote the shows they've already quoted.
No, because these movies fucking suck, Reddit, dude. Like Beetlejuice. The shit is fucking garbage. People don't even like it. Honestly, like they're not. It's because
the studio said, "Hey,
yeah, it's the studios.
People know this thing, and they will eat up the slop because they recognize thing. So let's make more thing. Just make more of it. And if they're lucky, they'll get a Tim Burton again or someone who worked on the original, so they can pump out a joyless, soulless representation of what it used to be."
Yeah, like again, the baby boomer generation is what liked Beetlejuice and what liked Gladiator, maybe Gen X too, I guess Gen X.
Yeah, I guess that.
Gladiator. I was 8 years old when Gladiator came out. I was was Beetlejuice in 88?
88 or 89, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't even born yet when Beetlejuice came out. So like it's not me making these popular. It's the same people, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers who are getting fucking decrepit. They're not letting new people come up with new ideas, or if they do, they don't make $1 billion fucking dollars, so they're a flop and they kick them out, and they're just retreading.
Sink or swim.
I think that's the problem.
If this recognizable property doesn't make us $2 billion, then we'll forget it forever and leave it behind.
That's why A24 is the literal saving grace of the film industry right now. Like they're literally fucking Atlas holding up the heavens.
It's not just them, but they're doing good work.
The most popular indie label's the only reason the industry has any creativity. Don't you take it back, Jake?
No. I can name others. I can name other studios. There are other studios.
Okay. Neon.
Neon. I was literally going to say Neon. Neon's another huge one.
Yeah,
they've been good.
There are companies. People are trying. I always am.
I'm excited.
I always try to.
There's a new wave of like studios that you see now, and you get excited for it instead of being like, oh, these are all interchangeable. Lionsgate, new like Warner Brothers, and
20th Century. Who the fuck knows who's making what? Yeah. All right, so let's get back on track.
I was just saying. Speaking of things that
number 2.
All right,
Taylor, go.
So Ghibli was number 2, and because I was torn here. Ghibli, like Studio Ghibli movies, because it's like I didn't want to.
Your number 2, okay?
Because originally it was going to be Spirited Away, because I think it's the best movie the studio put out, pound for pound.
Quintessential. It's quintessential. Yeah.
I think the locations, the art design, the story, though the pacing towards the last like 30 minutes does drag for me, and that's one of the reasons that I can't give it like my favorite of all time. But I think like if I had to like execute all but one movie, it'd probably be Spirited Away. But my personal ranking is Princess Mononoke because it was the first Ghibli movie I got to see. I either Spirited Away had been out or was coming out, but Mom just rented some random ass movie from Blockbuster, and it was Princess Mononoke for the family to watch, and it changed my life, man.
Wow.
The saga of that is very enthralling, and what I loved about that movie is like it didn't pit the factions of the world against each other. Like it almost was the humans weren't the protagonists, and like the guy you're following is just a narrative. Like it's just your lens into the world, and that's what I love about Studio Ghibli movies that like people laud as a insult is that not a lot happens. Because, and I think this is more so in their other movies than Princess Mononoke. That one's a very action movie.
Not so sure about.
But what I love about the movies, though, is that they linger in their worlds and they show you the non-exciting parts, and like it feels so real. And like I understand like the way this society functions because like they just like sit there a little bit and linger in a way that makes the worlds like easy to. I hate the like these nebulous get lost in, and it's so immersive, but like it feels like a movie going experience. It's like a story is unfolding in front of you, and you're just here for this awesome ride that you don't know what you're going to see, and it'll go fast and then it'll go slow and it'll be really exciting, really scary. Like all that stuff happens, and it's hard to tangibly explain why that's good to someone who says that stuff is stupid and boring. It's people who say that like a movie, like they describe the movie to you exclusively in the plot. The plot is the least important part of a film, if you want, in my opinion, in terms of like,
yeah,
it's always character. Character is always
the plot
important.
is just what you use to get your like a story is the most important to me, which is the way that the characters care about the plot. Like plot gets them to tell a story, and I feel like Ghibli is like all their plot is really boring and basic, which allows their story to be about the journey for these characters or something like that. And I loved the theme of the movie, and I thought like
so ahead of its time. Studio Ghibli movies were so ahead of it. Like this movie is hard preaching, like saving the planet, conserving nature, and this movie came out 40 fucking years ago.
And it has the humans in the most like cynical, like nihilistic, like just not. They do not fucking care and do not, even with evidence, they're like, nah, it doesn't matter. We're going to keep going. And it's just like, yeah, fucking drill,
That's
baby,
still
drill.
us. Yeah.
Like 100%. That is, it's such a sad movie. And like, this is a bittersweet, almost sad movie. Cause like at the end, the bad guys get punished, right? But like in a way that I don't know, the world is forever changed and you hope it's like hopeful, but like it's still such a, I don't know. The music in these movies too are very non-American. I'll say it's not like the instruments they use are. That's part of what makes it feel more magical to me. Is like it's visuals and soundscapes I'm not accustomed to, and not because they're not instruments I haven't heard, but arrangements I haven't heard them in. And that to me, I feel like Mononoke is the most fantastical of theirs, and it feels the least like let's bring the family together and have fun as much as like here's a really cool like fairy tale that was lost to time that you would tell your kids. I don't know. It feels really magical in a way that I can only kind of like ramble about. And I love Mononoke. Anytime someone wants to talk about it, I will. I will tell everyone they need to watch it. I'm obsessed with it. It's one of my favorites forever. And I haven't even talked about the actual animation being one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, because it's a Studio Ghibli movie, and it was made back in a time where you had to hand draw things. You couldn't cheat it. And if you did cheat it, you looked fucking shitty, like all those TV shows, One Piece or whatever, or
a lot of anime,
DBZ,
like when it's when they have to do weekly episodes, when it's just like one massive project.
Yeah, just pump it out. And they cut a lot of corners. Things are really bland. Characters in the background just completely still, not moving. Like all the hallmarks of cutting corners in animation are 100%, 1000% absent in Studio Ghibli movies. There's not a wasted frame. There's not some attention to detail given in every millisecond of the movie. It's all Studio Ghibli movies, even today, The Boy and the Heron, like one of the most recent Studio Ghibli movie, it's just shocking how beautiful it is. And again, all thanks to Hayao Miyazaki, who's just keeping the spirit of true animation alive. It's really incredible. But
it's stopping him
Princess
from dying.
Mononoke. The older I get, the harder it is to watch that movie because it is so moving. And as somebody who cares very much about the environment, I care very much about the welfare of animals.
What makes
just seeing this movie like embody what humans do to the planet and have been doing for so long. It's
what I love about it. It like gives such anger to the world in a way that like you don't hear. Like the movie, like the boars are so angry and like blinded by rage in a way that
literally.
I just feel like it feels so sad. It doesn't feel like the fear turns into pity, but like in this way of like how do you get here and like what do you do to fix it? Like it's too late. Like there's nothing anyone can do, and it's so sad. It feels so inevitable. Like everyone knows where the end is going to be, and no matter what anyone does, there's always that one guy that just like gets in there and fucks it up anyway. And it's just like, such a tragedy. And
they're doing like heinous shit, and the characters are then trying to betray each other because they're the ones that want to do the thing. So you have like the Billy Bob Thornton guy who's trying to like sneak behind the back of the main lady who's trying to get the head of the forest spirit, and it's like, if you kill the forest spirit, the world is going to end. And they're like, yeah, but we really want it. We'll figure it out later. No problem. Just go kill it first, then we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so human nature, and it's so sad. It's so hard to watch.
The classic, going too far, like humanity just isn't checking itself of like not thinking about the consequences of what they're trying to do, the Tower of Babel type shit. But yeah, love it. I think about the ending of Spirited Away a lot too, and the way that like I know
Stop talking about Spirited Away.
I can't help it because Mononoke in Spirited
that may or may not be on my list.
Okay, thank you. I honestly don't have too much more to say while trying to give everyone their time to gush about their animated thing. So, Princess Mononoke, my number 2.
Jake didn't say much. You have anything to add, Jake?
I really don't, because I've actually never seen it. I'll
just
say
stop talking immediately.
No. I'll just say briefly about Miyazaki. He is a blind spot for me. Obviously, like I said, I have been catching up. I've only seen 3. I've seen a handful of Studio Ghibli movies, but I've only seen 3 of Miyazaki's. One is
what the fuck?
One is Spirited Away.
Okay,
right,
good.
All right.
My Neighbor Totoro, and
Nice.
Porco Rosso. So I think those are all
Porco Rosso is really fun. I like that.
Those are very good ones, I think, that I've seen so far. Obviously, I know I'm missing like the biggest ones, like Mononoke, Nausicaa, Howl's Moving Castle. But I saw the quintessential one. I saw Spirited Away, and I think Totoro is also one that's very emblematic of. But
I meant like you didn't miss the big one. Oh yeah, okay, whatever.
But I will just say I understand completely what you were rambling about. Just just saying like I can't do anything but ramble. Just talking about how visceral, vivid, and alive Miyazaki's like. He doesn't just make a movie. He's creating a world that feels so real and like it is living and breathing. And then he's opening a window and saying, why don't you come step in here for an hour and a half? And instead of it just being like, here's a cartoon I made. It's like he really is inviting you to a completely unique place. And that is something that I get every single time that the 3 times that I've watched a Miyazaki movie is each one is so singular, but obviously clearly made by one person with oversight. So that's my piece about Miyazaki. I think he's very talented, but I wish I have seen more of his.
You knew more, yeah. We've been watching his movies since we were young. I always attributed it to Ryan. I thought Ryan is the one who kind of my older brother Ryan, who introduced us to Miyazaki movies, and we just got hooked and watched them repeatedly growing up. And I will throw Carver under the bus for the 5th time until he watches movies he has not seen a singular Ghibli
Oh,
movie.
wow.
You've at least seen some now. He hasn't seen them, and he's got fucking kids, man. I guess they're not even kids' movies, so I don't know why I said that. He could probably watch Spirited Away with his kids at this point, but yeah, I'm shocked because Carver is so nerdy and he really appreciates nerdy stuff, and he's a very empathetic guy, and like Miyazaki movies are just phenomenal films, and he loves animated stuff, he loves video games, like he absolutely should watch them, and he just hasn't seen a single one, and it's pretty mind-blowing. But anyways, yeah, Carver, get to stepping, man. I'm getting sick of having to call you out.
Yeah. All right. So am I supposed to give my number 2, or are you talking about?
I think
Okay.
we're almost an hour into the podcast, and I think we're going a little slow here. So let's.
Well, it's okay because I think your guys' discussions about
Oh,
yours
that's
are
true.
going to kind of overlap because you guys
Yeah, they
both
are.
have Ghibli on the rest of your list, whereas I have a different look here. But I'll go with my number 2.
Number 2.
Going back to the west, over from the east, we're going back to the white people land with a Goofy movie, 1995,
What?
directed by Kevin Lima. Yeah, so this is a one
Oh
that
my
people
I
are
will
always
back
like,
him up. This is
hold
a decent
on a
movie.
second.
I just had no clue it was coming.
yeah, no one ever expects the Goofy movie approach, but I have to say this is one that I did grow up watching this. I had the classic Disney clamshell VHS tape, of this film and wore it out. I'm not like a huge, I'm not, first of all, not a Disney adult. I will refute any accusations levied at me about being a Disney adult. I've never stepped foot in the parks as an adult. If you say anything about it, there will be pending litigation.
Okay.
I do not care. I do not care for Donald Duck. I do not care for the Mickey Mouse. I don't even care that much about Goofy, but
Who gives a fuck about the mermaid?
but
You know what I mean? Who cares about Lion King?
fucking what is this? A talking dog? What is
Yeah,
this? A movie for children?
Oh, the poor lion gets killed. Oh my, I'm
Oh.
so sad that a lion died.
Oh, my
no.
feelings. No, but a Goofy movie is a bizarre,
Yeah, but a Goofy movie.
this bizarrely dramatic, kind of dark father-son story about Goofy, a fucking like 7-foot tall talking dog who regularly explodes in cartoons and has a funny scream. It's a story about him being a struggling single father. Simultaneously, it's a story about his son living under the shadow of his famous but also completely inept, bumbling father who's just trying to connect with his teenage son. And his son is afraid of becoming his father. The film opens with a nightmare sequence where of body horror, Goofy body horror, where it's him being called to by the son being called to by his crush, and he's running towards her, and then all of a sudden he starts literally turning into his dad with the big buck teeth and the hayuk. So it's a weird level of depth for something involving Goofy, which is something that I think struck me as a kid. I was like, what is this? This is very strange. Why does Goofy have a day job as a portrait photographer in like a Kmart? Why is this world so real and bleak? Like, why is why is the son going to high school and doing pranks? And like, it ends up being a road trip movie where Goofy is trying to connect with his son because he doesn't want his son to become a wayward, rebellious teenager because he gets in trouble at school. And it's like, I don't want you to go to jail. That literally, Goofy says in the film, I don't want them to send you to the electric chair. I'm not even kidding. So
Nice.
it's
Every father wishes that for their son.
It's
I
one of
do
those
not
movies.
Wish you to die.
It's one of those movies that if you haven't seen it or haven't seen it since you were a kid,
That's
like, you gotta watch it as an adult and go, oh my god, what were they doing? What were they thinking? This is insane. But somehow it works. Somehow, the Disney movie about a father-son road trip where the son wants to go see the in-world version of Michael Jackson in concert, slash Prince slash Bobby Brown power line. But the dad's like, we're going on a fishing trip. And it's all about the son being given the responsibility of taking them on this road trip, but he decides, no, we're going to L.A. And it's all about them bonding and repairing their relationship. And I don't know. It's a really sweet movie at the end of the day. It's a really good movie about like connecting with your dad and connecting with a dad connecting with his son and like them finally understanding each other. And it's just such a bizarre framing device for fucking Goofy. Like, it's so weird.
Jake, I have a theory.
Yes.
Is this a movie where the Disney Corporation ended up buying a script and then altering it to fit into their IP? Because, like, in a lot of ways, this sounds like a reasonable movie until you start remembering it's Goofy the dog as the protagonist. Right?
Yeah, it's insane. Like, I don't know what the actual story of the development is because as far as I know, it was because it's based on Goof Troop, which was an existing cartoon
that makes sense. Actually, I forgot about Disney used to like do things and say and have stances for characters that weren't just like whatever's the most sanitized version of this cartoon possible. Fucking Disney.
Well, and I guess what happened, and I'm looking now, is that they wanted to make a movie, so they just hired a guy to write it. But I guess the dynamic of the movie was that the chairman of Disney at the time, Jeffrey Katzenberg, he had a shitty relationship with his daughter, so they went on a road trip to Bonn. And I guess he probably told the writer about it, and the writer was like, I'm gonna take this like indie ass storyline, and I'm gonna turn it into the Goof Troop movie. And also, like, fucking Pauly Shore is gonna voice a character in it. And it's gonna be the most 90s thing you've ever seen. It's so bizarre that it is a Goofy movie. And the score, it has this incredible score by Carter Burwell, who's basically mostly famous for having worked with like the Coen brothers and Martin McDonagh, who is how I discovered him because he did the score for In Bruges, which is an amazing film with an amazing score.
Yeah.
So a Goofy movie has a score by this
Naturally.
guy.
Yeah, sure. Of course. That's where I'd put him next.
You know? But it's just it's a movie about trusting your son, trusting your dad, coming to terms with the fact that you will become your father, and that and it's about the role that the parents have on their kids. It gets into the topics of like emotional and physical abuse and the effects that it has on children. I don't know what circumstances everything fell into place in such a perfect way for this movie to get made. I cannot believe it. And it's still so mostly unrecognized and kind of forgotten about that I have to go to bat for it every time.
Nice.
So that's my a Goofy movie spiel.
That's great. I don't know that I even saw a Goofy movie when I was a kid. I feel like I must have, but I have literally no recollection. I can't even see a pixel of that movie in my head. So
yeah.
I'll just have to take your word for it. But what you were saying reminded me of the 2004 Hulk movie directed by Ang Lee.
Hell yeah.
It's really an adult film.
It's very grounded and serious.
Yeah, it has some heavy ideas and things that it again, similarly, like child abuse and father-son relationships and the internal trauma that happens when, you don't even necessarily abuse your kid, but if abuse is near your child, the psychotic damage it can have to the damage it can do to their psychosis is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't psychosis
their psyche?
Their psyche. Jesus fucking Christ, couldn't think of words. Yeah, The Hulk 2004 is very similar, directed by Ang Lee, who's a real ass director, and I wish they would do this for Marvel movies instead of bringing these like indie directors who have one popular movie that nobody kind of knows about.
Yeah,
and they bully them into getting a paycheck, into directing shit. Like, that's why we were talking about this earlier. The homogenization of animated movies. It's exactly the same with Marvel movies. They used to have kind of a voice,
right?
Each one, and now there's no voice. They're all exactly the same. You wouldn't know one is directed by someone else over another.
I was just waiting to say that what I loved about the Ang Lee Hulk, it feels like the way comic books are, where they'll have another run that's not quite as long as the main line, that kind of explores a weird little, like, kind of more interpersonal story. It just feels like every superhero movie now is like, what if there was only one comic book written by one guy and we were just writing the next movie in the line?
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, they all have to be connected as part of the universe of Marvel, and it's
like the way that they would,
it just
like,
makes everything so boring.
And it's funny is that, like, comics did end up having to make those connections, but they had standalone stories too. Now it feels like, well, you watch this to know how it's connected to the next thing, rather than like, what is next for Tony Stark and the psychological damage from the stuff that he's doing. No, they don't do that anymore. They just think of, well, we got to add in the next new character because we're building up to the next major story crossover event we haven't finished yet. Like, that's
they've sort of like trapped themselves.
Capitalism, man.
Well, yeah, okay. So number 2, Goofy movie. Nice. I don't have much else to say about it. I think I'm next in the number 2s.
I will back up just that. It is so funny because think of every road trip movie where the dad and the son have this fight in which, like, the dad is now frustrated that his son is, like, thinks he's uncool. Be like, okay, son, I guess if it's okay with you, I'll follow. But now you have to say that line in Goofy's voice, and it instantly makes sense why this is one of the greatest animated movies of all time. So
yeah, there is a scene where Goofy loses his temper at his son and gives him the silent treatment, pulls over at the side of the road and gets out of the car and just stands at an overlook and refuses to interact with his son. And to me, like, that was the most real moment. I saw that movie as a kid and was like, oh, this is like when my dad gets mad at me, and then I was very sad.
That's the exact scene I'm thinking of. It's so good. But it feels like you need it for your own soul. For the human experience, you should just watch that one scene at least once.
At least once. And also, in light of the passing of our beloved filmmaker David Lynch, I also have to point out the extremely funny edit on YouTube, and I hope it's still there. It was ages ago, but someone cut a fake trailer out of a Goofy movie, but to make it look like a David Lynch movie, and it works very well. It's incredible.
I actually saw that.
Yeah, that's a classic piece of YouTube cinema. But
all right, Kyle, I'm curious.
All right,
you're number 2.
Yeah, number 2. Well, you already know it's The Incredibles.
What? I didn't know that. That was my Incredibles voice.
Oh, that was incredible.
Thank you.
That's Fantastic Four movie.
Yay. So, yeah, The Incredibles, man. It's similar to what Taylor said before. If it's on, I will watch it. It's so goddamn fun, and it's really exciting, and it's interesting. And the way that they the family dynamic, a family of superheroes that has to do super stuff, but also, like, it's still your annoying little brother fucking with you, but he's got super speed, and it's your annoying older sister trying to get revenge, but she can turn invisible, and, you know, the mom and dad who have a history together because they used to fight crime as young, like, superheroes, and the idea is just, it's brilliant. Having superheroes, but adding in a literal family dynamic. Like, I don't think I've ever seen that in anything before. Even in Marvel superhero stuff, it's not a unit of 4 people that are father, son, mother, daughter, you know? Like, it's a really novel idea, and it's really fun, and to explore, you know, how adults think and feel when they're past their prime, but they still have value, but their value has diminished enough that younger, better people replace them. Not really something I can relate to, because I don't really have any value.
I was like, oh yeah, don't. He takes value away from society, really.
Yeah,
he's a net negative.
Generally. So yeah, it's like I have anti-connection with this movie because of that. No, but it is a fun topic to like see explored. Obviously, I can't relate to it because I don't have kids. I didn't like do cool stuff when I was young, and now I can't do it anymore. There's none of that going on. So, but it's a cool concept, and
Kyle.
Yeah. What?
What I love about this, a lot of people point to Syndrome's little like twist and like at the end, the quote of the line, "If everyone's super, nobody is."
Yeah.
What I really like about that is that it doesn't necessarily have to be about superpowers for that message to mean something. Like, in a lot of ways, I'm incredibly annoying. I know, hard to believe, but people might find me irritating. But there are things but I'm so that is such a distinct, the way I talk and the way I interact with people, right? That you would never mistake me for someone else because of how uniquely, if a lot of people talked and interacted the same way that I did, I would get lost in the crowd. So it's nothing to do with superpowers, but that is such a, like, I think a positive message being delivered by an antagonist that, like, it's weird to have, like, his view be negative, but, like, I take something positive out of it. I don't know. I think Syndrome is so interesting, and I don't know if that's a good thing to take away, but in some ways, like, I just think it's a very thought-provoking thing, and it's so empathetic. Like, I could understand the dude's frustration and his anger, and, like, I don't know. I am always, like, kind of the weird dude out. So, like, I kind of empathize a lot. That's something that was, I think, really good with this movie is that, like, I don't know, I empathize a lot with the villain.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hey, they did a great job with him. And the flashback scenes of him, feeling snubbed and rejected and feeling like he isn't special enough to matter in this world of super people. Yeah, like you said, it's a very poignant message that can be related to in a bunch of different ways. Yeah, it's like, if everyone has superpowers, then what's going to define us? It's like, well, you kind of have to go back to basics. And it's like, is the person nice? Do they have, are they unique in a different way?
And, like, you can start to see really cool that those traits they are important, even if they don't feel super, that type of thing of, I also love this, that, like, none of like, everyone had conflict with each other, but, like, it wasn't too much, I don't know. It wasn't mean-spirited, I guess, is what I mean. Because, like, sometimes there's conflict of, like, I'm dreading the when they butt heads because it's going to be really nasty. But, like, Bill, like, the dad lies to his wife, like, the whole movie, right? Like, he's dishonest the whole time. Obviously not to be evil or anything. Like, he's not cheating on her. But I don't know. Edna Mode is also an all-time legendary Pixar character. I love her so much.
Of course.
Yeah, she's great.
I thought there was one other point I was going to make.
Where is my super suit?
Oh, Samuel L. Jackson is so good in that too. God, yeah, everyone does really well in that movie. The coincidence, I think not. I quote basically once a week.
I think not.
Man, that movie is weirdly quotable, but I also love the kind of, like, it feels like if it takes place like kind of like during the 50s.
It's a 60s, very 60s, like 60s inspired,
for sure. And I also love the they don't go into it too much, but that, like, window when, like, people are starting to sue the superheroes for saving them, but, like, being too rough. And, like, this idea of, like, what it's part of the reason why The Boys always was, like, interesting conceptually to me, of, like, there's that realistic angle of, like, what happens when someone, like, catches you from falling, but you get thrown into the building, like, we're frail still. What does that do? And, like, what does that look like? And, like,
wow, I just realized, holy shit, The Incredibles tackles topics that The Boys is being lauded for tackling.
Oh,
it's like The Incredibles did this 10 fucking years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah, The Boys isn't. Well, I mean, I know The Boys comic was around at the same time, and it's a bad comic. And the show is actually better than the comic, believe it or not. And the show is not very good.
It's still terrible.
Season 1, I will defend to the end.
I was gonna say season 1 of The Boys was so cool and fun and interesting.
Oh, it's gone so far off the rails now.
Yeah, season 2. By the time I was done with season 2, I was like, "Yep, another show that I can't watch anymore because they absolutely ruined." They ruined everything that made this show special.
Yeah, but you're right though. I mean, and I think there's in The Incredibles, to what you're saying, there's a really interesting through line of, like, that theme of liability. Like, and responsibility, obviously,
Oh
but
my God,
specifically
that's so
liability,
true.
because he literally at the beginning, like the initial conflict in Mr. Incredible's life, part of it is that he's working for a fucking horrible insurance conglomerate, having to deny people's claims, and like
Yep.
he it's like he doesn't even have the power in his life at that point to help somebody through the means in which society has deemed it helpful. It's like, well, you have insurance, and then the insurance says fuck you.
You know what, Jake,
um
though? Actually, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but when you said this, it made me think about you saying the liability and responsibility of, like, Mr. Incredible seeing someone who wanted a mentor and a guide,
yes,
just saying, like, dude, go away, you're annoying, and how now this idea of rejecting someone who's asking for help or, like, wants guidance, not having
yes,
that guidance, what does that do? And, like, taking responsibility for that, too. Is like, dang, that's kind of the theme of that, too. Of what
yeah.
happens if you-
There
so good.
there's a critique in there of like that very like 40s, 50s, 60s male centric mentality of like everyone is responsible for their own fate, and everybody takes charge of themselves, and you make your own way in this world, and you don't ask for help, which is very much how Mr. Incredible is as a superhero and how he came up. And so, yeah, there is this idea of, well, he is directly responsible for the villain, for the creation of the villain, and for the circumstances. Now the danger he's put his family in as a result is it's his fault because of his own, his own life ethos at any given time, his approach to the situation. So I do think it's tackling a lot of really interesting stuff in a way that, I mean, when you're a kid watching it, you're just going, oh, this is like the comic books I read. I love this. This is like the
Yeah.
Fantastic Four. But it's, and then you watch it as an adult and you go, oh my God, this guy's telling a real, like, Brad Bird is telling a real story here with like actual themes. It's not just Michael Giacchino's incredible score.
But it's also very understandable on a surface level, because even as a kid, I mean, if you have brothers and sisters, you can kind of relate to the brother sister stuff.
The
going on.
dynamic,
You can,
the competitiveness and
you can understand why the parents feel the way they do. You might not be able to kind of see anything deeper in it, but you get it. You're like, oh yeah, Mr. Incredible feels washed up. It's like the
irony
it's very
of
understandable.
the irony of Mr. Incredible feeling powerless is something that, like, you can get it as a kid, I guess, to an extent, but as an adult, it's like, wow, that really does. It's very simple, but they show it so effectively. He gets mad and he goes and he accidentally lifts his car up like he's going to throw it, and the little kid, the bubble pops in his face, and it's like, this is a man who is not. He can't. He's stifling his own emotions because he can't reveal his power level. He's so frustrated. He doesn't know how to handle these feelings, and it's like he's the catalyst for all these things, and he has to come to terms with that. And then obviously you add all the family dynamic stuff on top of it, and you get a really singular Pixar movie in a lot of ways, both in style and in tone.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. Yeah, so The Incredibles, that's my number 2. I love it. Seen it 15 times. It's amazing. What's your number 2, Taylor? Or wait, are we on number 1?
Yeah, we're on number 1.
All right, let's hear it.
Incredibles 2. No, I'm just kidding. I had you for a second. No, it's Akira because it can't be Neon Genesis Evangelion's movie. Because that's, to me, the most moved I've ever been by a piece of animation, if you will, that story. But Akira, to me, that was the first one to me that made me realize that these are stories can be told the same way that like David Fincher can tell a really deep and dark and interesting story with live action like that. I hadn't seen something like that. The fact that like the protagonist that the movie is shot as like the point of interest character starts as Tetsuo, who ends up being the very, very bad dude by the end. And like how sad it is to see him like drift apart, and like a lot of the people who are probably watching the movie identify so much with the Tetsuo character of being the loser the outcast, the guy who looks up to his cool friend and his girlfriend in their lives, that like you just don't have the inherent ability the way that some people just, you see them, they're just naturally, they get it. And there's like this built up.
Funny enough, it's like, if you are that popular cool guy in school, you're not watching the movie Akira. So it's almost just like by design that everyone is going everyone who's watching Akira is going to relate to Tetsuo more or less.
Exactly.
Obviously, I'm painting with a broad stroke, but for the most part, I think
for
that's
sure. There's
true.
always exceptions and all that dumb nerd stuff.
Yeah.
But and I love just how viscerally the movie is able to paint the mental anguish that Tetsuo's going through. People are dying. That main characters die in that movie in ways that are not like fun or powerful.
No.
It's dark, and you're just like, it's unceremonious and bleak, and the ending is just kind of so nebulous. The way that, like, one of the reasons I love the ending of Evangelion of Avil just like descends into just, the ending is just this dude's mindscape. This is very much just like it doesn't matter what happens in that moment. It's about what the characters are feeling. That's what is happening, is their like emotional climax where the forces are hitting it as hard as they can against each other and have their fun little anime tirades where friendship wins out in the end, but not this time. It also like presents this idea of like, sometimes people are evil not because they want to do harm, but like they're in a bad spot and they're given power and they just like don't know how to like they aren't thinking clearly. And it's a tragic thing of like, this guy should have been a hero and could have been if it was different circumstances or life just went a different way. And it portrays this like really bleak view of the future, and it's just like, I don't know, it's a really dark movie, but it's just like one of the most moving things I've ever seen. I was blown away by everything. I did not like see how it was going. I don't know. It's weird as shit too. I love weird shit. So I don't know. Like, I haven't talked about the weird old baby people.
Right, yeah.
And I will say it is a little anime of the like the trope of it being overly complicated.
Tetsuo! For the last half of the movie.
Dude,
they do be speaking Japanese.
But and so in a lot of ways, it's kind of like the reason it's so amazing to me is also where I was when I saw it. But those are why the things that I think make it so awesome. The motorcycle slide being in Nope, for God's sake, like this is the type of stuff that is like, this thing has transcended medium in such a way.
Influential.
I mean, the poster is so
iconic, yeah,
so good, and the jacket, and it portrayed this. I guess this world is dystopian.
Oh, yeah, it's dystopian, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this dystopian cyberpunk world is so fucking cool and
violent. It's very violent,
unbelievably violent, and it's a pretty. Yeah, it's a very heavy, dark movie. I had something to say, but I kind of lost it. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that's all I had on it.
My contribution to Akira talk is that I fucking love the score for that film.
Oh,
probably.
Damn, is it good?
Like, there's obviously a lot of reasons to love that movie individually, but the combination of how it looks, how it's like edited, and then the way they incorporate the music and the decisions they made for having it be so, like, there's a lot of choral work, but it's also electronic, but there's these big drums, and it's like gritty, but almost like spiritual sounding. It's
and well said.
It's so impactful, and it elevates the material like in a way that only music can, because it really evokes so much emotion, and like the literal chorus acts as like at times, especially around the climax of the movie, where it's like basically it's standing in as just like the helpless screams and cries of people, but at the same time it's like almost soothing. It's very, very interesting. It's very cool. I don't know how else to describe it. It's cool as hell.
It is unbelievably good. Yeah, that reminded me, what I wanted to say too was that because of the voice acting, both on the Japanese and the English dub, and the animation level, Akira is also, you might not realize it at the time you're watching it, maybe if you're young, right, in your early teens or something. You don't realize that you're relating to characters that are not real in a much more literal way than just like an actor on a screen playing a fake character. It's like these are literally pieces of paper with things drawn on them, and you're relating to these characters. You're feeling for them. You have emotion tied to them, and that's something that doesn't. I mean, of course, it happens when you watch anime and stuff sometimes, but it's much more, I don't know, tangible or impactful in Akira and movies like the Miyazaki movie, Studio Ghibli movies. It's something that once you kind of connect, you realize that's why these movies are so good, is because it's complete make believe, pieces of paper, drawn things on paper, and you're like crying because this character's upset. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's obviously, it's completely flat, but it's also so tangible at the same time. It's just like, I'm looking at images and artfully moving around and camera tricks, and just a ton of time. And it's like, that's kind of the magic of animation, is like, we take individual drawings and move them in such a way that now feel emotions.
Yeah.
It's such it's that transcendent quality
Very
of
weird.
just pure delivery of emotion via drawing.
There's a sequence very early in which Tetsuo like has this moment where the screen kind of goes he's in this space of all this black, and his guts just kind of like fall to the floor.
Yeah,
and I remember
trying to scoop him back up into it.
That sequence, that was the moment that movie like ripped through me. Like I had been so, I did not realize how into it I was, that like seeing that, I had such a like visceral gut reaction to seeing that, and I was like, oh my god, I've never had a physical reaction to an animated scene before. I've never seen anything that would make me feel that.
His facial expression and how frantic he is trying to like scoop his insides back into himself. Of course, it's a dream sequence. He's like, I think this is when his kind of powers are starting to turn on, and he has this sort of image where he falls onto his hands and knees. I think he's getting beat up, or he gets hit and knocked down, and he's on his hands and knees, and the whole world turns black, and it's just him in this void space, and his guts just go and fall out of him, and he's like, and trying to scoop him back. Oh man, that scene is crazy.
Yeah, it was hard.
And like you said, it's hard to watch. It's just like getting punched in the gut. Maybe not ironically. You're like, oh my god, it's so cool.
I didn't want to stay on it too long. I just wanted to really really emphasize truly, like, this movie is the most important, one of the like top 5 most important movies I've ever watched in the history of my human experience. That like,
hell yeah.
It's wish powerful. I could snort this shit, dude. I want to get high on this kind of stuff. Like, that's how much this, like, it's like number 2 in my top 10 fictional story experiences. Not even just animated movies. Like, it's not even fair. But I don't have a lot of good words to sell it, other than like, that's how good it is. It's just like kind of part of the way I interact with fiction is because of the way this movie made me feel about it. It's totally irrational, but like, that's the intensity I have for it.
It's amazing.
So that's my my number 1, I guess.
Okay. So number 1, Jakey Poo.
Jakey Poo, his number 1. So it's a Studio Ghibli movie, but it's not from Hayao Miyazaki, because Miyazaki is not the only guy at Ghibli.
No, he's not.
It's not anything made by his horrible fail son, Goro.
Yeah.
which unfortunately dispels the notion that Ghibli has never made a bad movie, because Goro was allowed to make his 3D monstrosity.
Hold on, I'm going to pause you real quick. Is this a real opinion you have, or is this a meme that I don't know?
No, Goro Miyazaki
he makes terrible movies.
He's
but it's also a meme that Hayao Miyazaki
He hates
has
his
like
kid, yeah.
openly talked about how
That's
much
why I
his
was-
son is like not able to do what he
It's so
does,
stupid.
doesn't
Yeah.
have it in him. Like, so it's a meme, but it's also real. He does
yeah.
make shit movies.
No,
So you-
he's just
okay,
yeah.
you agree with
He is
his dad,
100%
okay.
writing. He's writing his dad's coatails,
Oh, that's sad.
which is
All right.
not acceptable in Japan. It's like really, really a shameful thing there.
Oh, okay.
So-
Sorry to hijack it, but I
No.
have to know 'cause that's funny as hell.
No, what I have found though in my time getting into Studio Ghibli as an adult, just way after I should have been, is that Isao Takahata
Yeah.
is the guy who really resonates with me. He's the director behind films
Don't
like
tell me.
Only Yesterday or Grave of the Fireflies, My Neighbors the Yamadas, which are, I'd say, probably his 3 other most popular films other than the one I'm about to mention, which is called Pom Poko, a 1994 Studio Ghibli film directed by Isao. And it is very much in line with the Studio Ghibli ethos, where it's a story primarily about the effect of Japanese people on their country in terms of the environment and urban development. So it's about tanuki, which are Japanese raccoon dogs. They look like raccoons, but they're actually a type of dog in Japan. And they're like they're obviously, because Japan they've got all this like spiritual folklore about all these creatures that all have like personality types and stuff like that. They're like, tanuki are known for being like little trickster shapeshifters in Japanese mythology. And so this is a movie about a clan of tanuki who are being affected by human urban development in the 1960s in Japan, as the cities are as urban growth is exploding in the post-World War II Japan. And it's a movie about tanuki like actively sabotaging construction sites and trying to preserve their environment, pretending to be forest ghosts to scare off developers. And ultimately we know what happens to Japan. It becomes completely overdeveloped, and it's just a story about trying to strike a balance between existence of people and the existence of the naturally occurring wildlife. And it's it's an extremely funny movie. It's really touching and sweet. It plays on all the typical tropes that you might see in an animated film about animals, where it'll pull at your heartstrings by having characters die, putting them in stressful situations, but it's also very playful, very, very Japanese, and because tanuki famously have enormous scrotums, there is so much hairy ballsack in this movie.
I was waiting to drop that. I had forgotten I had seen this movie until you described the tanuki. I was like, is this the raccoon ball movie?
They have
Yeah.
huge
Giant.
ball sacks that they bounce around on and fly with,
Yeah.
and it's central to the characters' existences.
Don't you love how you don't imagine that until it's explained, and then you have to be like, wait a minute,
Dude.
what the fuck are you talking about?
The balls must be acknowledged. You can't even
You
not
can't-
address them.
They're literally half the screen, all right? You can't
Yeah.
not see them.
Integral to the storyline, but it's one of those movies that I watched. I remember in the moment being like, this is very cute, this is very sweet, like I very much will love to show this to my kids someday. But then in the the year and change or whatever it's been since I watched it for the first time, it's never left my head. Like I just always think about it, and especially just in regards to how they portray the tanuki themselves. And I don't know, it makes me, it's a like you said with a lot of the Hayao Miyazaki stuff, like there is a perfect balance of emotions that ultimately, you're left feeling kind of bittersweet in a lot of those movies. And Pom Poko is like the perfect example of that, where, Japan, successful, they built houses for people because they had to, but at the cost of, the tanuki's habitat. And it's so simple, but at the same time, it's so emotionally engaging and effective. And it's just that pure environmental focus that I think really, really works. I think that's like such a core strength of the early Studio Ghibli stuff. Um, but yeah, I think Isao Takahata is a really, really interesting director. I need to watch more of his stuff. I do own Grave of the Fireflies, but I've actually never watched it because that's the one
I'm scared to
everyone
watch it.
always says it's the most like heartrending movie they've ever seen in their entire life.
Yeah.
And I believe it because this guy Takahata is really good at the emotional stuff. Simple, character-driven, genuine emotional stuff that, his work is not nearly as fantastical, fantasy-oriented, or action-oriented as Miyazaki's is. It's got a much more grounded angle, and I'd say Poko is probably his, at least of the ones I've seen, is the most sort of outrageously, because it's about some talking animals. But
I haven't seen it.
Other than that, you haven't seen it? Is that what you said?
No, nope, have not seen
Yeah.
Poko.
And after that's a long time ago.
And I realized also, for whatever reason, all of my movies are from either 94 or 95. So there must be something about that early 90s stretch in animation that really appeals to across all three of these movies.
Or
but yeah, Poko.
The year 1994 is paying you to hype up it as the favorite year of all time.
Which doesn't make sense because I was born after I was born. I should be repping 93. So, but no, it's yeah, I don't know. Poko, man, like this was a hard one for me to figure out what's my number one. But Poko is one of those movies that once you watch it, I don't know, I feel like you can never forget it. Maybe if it's just because of the Tanuki balls.
Yeah,
like that's the takeaway.
I was really shocked because it didn't leave any impression on me, but I didn't dislike the movie. But I feel like that's what a lot of what makes Ghibli so divisive sometimes is that the not being remarkable can make it so remarkable because it's just it is so much. Yes, it's more personal. It's very much more subdued compared to a Miyazaki movie, which again, it's done in Miyazaki's painting bold, it's big ideas, big concepts, big imaginative worlds, and lots of integration of traditional mythology and imagery and all that stuff. And Poko is just a smaller, more personal, more intimate version of that. So I can see why, especially as a younger person, watching the Miyazaki stuff first, especially something like Mononoke, which I know, or like Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, which I know are more environmentally focused, more dynamic, and then seeing something by Takahata and being like, oh, this is okay. This doesn't hit as hard, but so your experience may vary, and obviously I'm watching these movies for the first time under pretty unique distinct circumstances just as an adult and removed from kind of the traditional childhood experience, at least in the West, of consuming animation and how that's kind of processed. But
right.
And then there are a lot of movies that could have filled this spot for me for other reasons, but because it's I do like lots of other. It's not that I only love Japanese animation or that I only like 2D animation. I love stop motion, I love CG animation, I love all eras and all different types. East and West, but man, there are a few movies that really make me feel a range of emotions, like a Studio Ghibli film. At the end of the day.
Yeah, man, you bringing up stop motion reminded me that's a huge. I didn't even think about that in terms of animation. I guess it could be considered that.
Oh yeah, well of course it is. I mean, I almost
Nightmare Before Christmas might have made it on my list if I had thought more about it. That movie is so fun and special, and Lauren and I watched it recently, and we were both just so happy after watching it. And it's a bizarre ass universe, but you want to live there. It's weird.
I've never seen it, which is funny.
Dude, you have to see it.
I know.
It's a musical, which is crazy.
Yeah,
it's a total blind spot.
Yeah. If Kyle likes that and it's a musical, there's absolutely no...
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And it's so short. It's like an hour 20, hour 15 even. It's real short, but I wish it was longer.
Yeah.
It's just such a cozy, fun little world.
It's
Well,
so gross. I love how gross it is.
Yeah, it's
those
so
Leica
nasty.
those Leica studio guys, man, they're really talented. They're from my neck of the woods out here in Oregon. They're
nice.
they're a Portland studio, yeah, because they did Coraline,
Corpse Bride, I assume as well.
Corpse Bride. I think they did one that like was on sort of my short list because I had a whole list of different types of animation. So like for me, stop motion really is like James and the Giant Peach and
yeah,
and then also Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is not Leica, but like
Ooh,
Fantastic
dude,
Mr. Fox is a huge one for me.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
yeah.
That's why it was so hard for me. It's like there's so many great animated movies, even if I've
Zootopia.
only seen like 35 of them, or have seen 35 that I think are like really good. Like Fantastic Mr. Fox is another one that's it's up there. It's almost a top spot. And, you know, it's how could you ever really definitively say? Like I can't definitively say. There are so many movies.
Well, I can definitively say, moving on,
So you're number one.
my number one is Spirited Away.
Yes.
Indeed. This movie is let's see if I can gather my thoughts here enough to talk about it coherently. It is number one, as with all Miyazaki movies, as we've been saying, it's very, very touching. And the more I watch it, the more I find myself emotionally moved by the things that happen. And this movie, of course, it touches on many, many themes that people struggle with. Specifically, is I think like an overarching theme to this is it's kind of like how you grieve losing something, and specifically it's moving. And I remember I moved, Taylor, we moved when I was 12 years old. This was like at the height of Hadassah Drive, our old address, being the single best place for a kid to grow up. Every single house had a kid within a couple years of your age that wanted to come out and play. Every single day, I could not wake up early enough to go outside and ring doorbells and get people coming out to play fucking magic on the sidewalk and ruin our cars, or play make-believe StarCraft and pretend we're fire bats and zerglings, or just play Ghost in the Graveyard at night, or play frisbee, go frisbee golfing. Like, this was the absolute peak childhood experience, and mom goes, "Hey, we're moving an hour away." And as a kid, it's utterly devastating. You might as well move to another fucking planet. You're never going to see your friends again. It's fucking horrible. You're too young to drive. You have no control over anything, and you just have to go. And this movie is very similar to that. It opens with this family, this father and mother and daughter Chihiro moving, and Chihiro is dealing with like grieving, moving, and dealing with going to a new school and being the new kid, which is a pretty traumatic experience. It's very hard to be the new kid, especially where we moved as well. We moved to a small town where everyone there, the school is K through 12, K through 8. So these kids have known each other for 8 fucking years in school, and I came in as an 8th grader. Taylor might have lucked out in the way that he was a freshman in a new high school where a bunch of different districts came together. So like everyone was kind of a new kid one way or another.
Yeah, I definitely would say I had a much smoother transition for that reason.
Yeah, except we were still, even the new kid, we didn't have a single group to belong to. We were literally just solo. Anyways, so yeah, I was an 8th grader coming into this class of like 35. That's how much of us. There was only 35 8th graders in this town. Very, very small. So it was an extremely insulated group. And anyways, yeah, like trying to talk about Spirited Away, and it's just making me talk about moving as a kid, but that's how powerful and potent this movie is. Specifically because I relate to it in such a direct way. Then piled on top of this, you have the whole rest of the movie, which is, you know, her parents getting trapped in the spirit world and turning into pigs, and she has to find the inner strength to fight through this world where she is virtually, or I guess, I don't know, by proxy or however you want to say it, she is the new kid. She is the only human in this world of spirits, and she has to hide, and she makes one friend who really helps her out, Haku. and fighting for your family, fighting for yourself, trying to get a hold of your identity and what makes you go, what gives you strength, and what should you fight for. And I don't know, the movie is just incredibly touching. I'm almost like getting moved talking about it and thinking about it. That's how much I love this movie. And this world is so fun and special. The Japanese, as you mentioned in your for Pompoko and the mythology and stuff, the Japanese spirit world is so cool. The mythology they have for this universe is so awesome. And to see it kind of realized, but also turned on its head and made unique and special by Miyazaki and his own ideas. And this world is so full. And you're thrown into this, you're living this experience through Chihiro, the main character. You're thrown in just like she is, just dumped into the deep end. But it's such a full, distinct universe, and you can see how everything works, and you kind of passively understand the rules, even though the rules are explained to Chihiro because she's young and doesn't understand what's happening. And Haku is like, you gotta hold your breath to cross over this bridge. You just have to do that here. And as a audience member, you're like, yeah, dude, hold your fucking breath, get across the bridge. Like, you're just all in with these characters and these rules that don't make any sense, but they're fun, and it's just such a wonderful movie. And it is of course bittersweet the way it ends, and by the time the movie ends, you don't want her to leave the spirit world, but she's not supposed to be there, so she has to leave anyway and get pulled back to reality of like, oh yeah, I'm moving to a new place. Oh yeah, I left my friends. But, she was able to overcome so much in the spirit world. She's found some new inner strength and some new sense of self and self-esteem maybe, and confidence, and she's a bit more ready to handle what's to come. And if only we could have some bizarre fucking daydream experience like this that makes us stronger and able to deal with an experience that's giving us some problems, it would be quite amazing if that could happen to us. But yeah, Spirited Away, man, it is really, I've said so many times. It's an extremely powerful movie. It's so beautiful. The animation, of course, just absolutely top tier. Something I wanted to touch on that we've talked about a little bit here and there when referring to these animated movies is how full the worlds feel, and the reason for that is, and it's for Miyazaki movies specifically. I noticed this when watching The Boy and the Heron. He really makes you live in the world with these characters. They don't teleport from A to B. You watch them walk from point A to point B. Specifically the ending act of the movie, which Taylor, you brought up, and I wanted to bring some things to light that might make you enjoy it more, think differently about it. Presumably you're talking about when Chihiro has to get on the train and go to Zeniba's house and like basically counteract the curse of what's happening to her and return Haku back into a human or whatever. Is that the whole sequence that you think is like a bit slow and holds down the movie for you?
That's my memory of it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. The reason why this part is so important to be slow is because the movie hasn't stopped since it starts. And the only time there is a distinct pause is usually Chihiro being like emotionally overwhelmed. Like the part where she hasn't eaten and Haku gives her a rice ball and is like, look, you gotta eat something. You haven't eaten. And while she's eating, she's just bawling her eyes out, but she's also starving. So she's like scarfing her face. So it's an extremely touching moment, and it's very heartfelt. And you relate to her so much, like, holy shit, how is this little girl going through all this? But yeah, she's hungry. She's got to eat, man. So like, it's funny, but it's heartfelt. So anyways, any moment of respite in this movie is usually still occupied by something, by some kind of heightened emotion. And this sequence at the end where she gets on the train is one of the first moments in the movie where she actually has time to sit and just exist. She's gotten used to the spirit world. She's overcome some things. She's dealt with the kind of somewhat loss of her parents. She has hope because she could get him back. But like, she's gone through all of these things and processed all of these things, and she's finally able to just sit in a fucking seat and chill for a second. And that, when you realize is what's happening and you watch the train go by, and it's, I mean, the whole ending sequence is her in this train, basically. I'm going into way too specifics here, but whatever. This is just how passionate I am about the movie. It's basically just a 5-minute train ride that you watch as an audience member. You watch the certain spirits get off the train. Like, the train makes stops and you watch them leave the train. There's shots of outside the train window, just the horizon going by, and Chihiro just watching outside peacefully and enjoying this moment of respite. And it's just an incredible movie. And the pacing, even though yes, it does slow down at the end, it's extremely deliberate. And this all ties back to what I was talking about originally, which is the world building. This is world building at its finest, where it may be boring, but when you feel like it's almost intentional that you're bored. Like, yeah, you're bored when you're on a train. That could be something that you find is happening in the sequence, but it makes the world completely fucking real, even though it is so fantastical and fake. And that's something he does in The Boy and the Heron as well, where I noticed in the very beginning of the movie, the boy is in his bedroom, and he's just pulling books out of his book bag and setting them on his desk, pulling a book out of his book bag, setting them there, opens the drawer and puts a thing in the drawer. You're just watching this boy do things that like a normal boy would be doing, but it's animated. And it grounds it so incredibly well that you feel so invested in this world. But it's just simple things like that of not having a character teleport to the next space, watching them do the things that you have to do if you were in their position.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that just makes these worlds so fully realized and unbelievably incredible. Like, he knows to take his time. That's really what it all boils down to. He knows. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Miyazaki. I was going to say Miyazaki really. He intentionally. It's like a type of mindfulness where it's like, he understands that especially in Western culture, which he's not making it for Western culture, but you can tell that there is obviously he knows his films are popular in America, and he's drawing on, I'd say, European and Western influences for a lot of Spirited Away. And where it's like intentionally where a Disney movie might want to rush people along so that they don't feel things, he mindfully slows down and lets the audience sit in the moment because he knows that they will feel whatever emotion that they're supposed to be feeling. And he knows that our minds will automatically kind of put ourselves in that situation and just sort of, I don't know, it's like soaking in it.
Yes.
Which is it is very, very Japanese of him. It's very, and you can just see that it's very much an intentional choice. Like, just like the way, like you said, with the moments with Chihiro, any moment of respite is a moment that you can also use to build her character. Yes. And it's simple stuff. It's always simple stuff. It's just through observation. It's through things that are to be expected. It's typical, through typical behaviors, through a kid acting like a kid. You go, yeah, I probably feel the same way. Or how would I do in that situation? Like, I just think he shows such an insightfulness to the human condition in his art. It's like no wonder he can connect with audiences regardless of language so easily because he just wants people to sit and feel these things in the moment. Gives you the opportunity instead of just rushing to the next set piece so that audiences don't get bored like Western animation wants to do. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, he has a full story to tell, and he's gonna make you sit there and experience the whole story. And he's not just going to transport you from set piece to keep you entertained. He wants to tell you something.
And I'm curious, Kyle, did you watch this as a kid? Because, I mean, it came out probably before you were even 10 years old. I think it was, 2001 or
2001.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was 9. Yeah, I mean, I watched it when it came out because I was aware of Miyazaki movies.
And so,
Yeah, I
and it
watched
had
it
that,
when it
and it
came out.
had that effect on you even when you were a kid. Like you saw it, and you were just like totally floored.
Yeah, I was totally floored, but not for the same reasons, and that's
Well,
I
yeah,
mentioned
of
that
course.
earlier. That rewatching it, it's like I find something new to appreciate about the movie every time I watch it, or I relate to it in a different way, and that's another thing. Just the timelessness of his movies, and no matter what age you are or what you've been through, there's something in here for you, and the more you rewatch them, the more experiences you have, the more things you can pull out of these movies, which is
Yeah.
something else. That they're just so unbelievably timeless. So yeah, like I hadn't moved yet when I first watched this movie, and then I moved, and then years later rewatched it, and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that fucking sucks. I relate to that so much in a much more visceral way now, and like, oh, I do care about my parents a lot more. I'm not an edgy teenager who's like, fuck you, mom and dad. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I love my mom and dad. Yeah, holy shit, imagine losing your parents when you love them. Like that's horrible. And so yeah, but then if you watch it as a kid and you have none of those experiences, it's just this amazing fantasy movie about a
Right.
little girl like trying to find her way out of the spirit world. Like it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful movie, and I love it. It looms very large in my heart. It's in my top 4 favorite movies of all time, not just anime.
Yeah.
It is actually in my top 5 all time favorite movies. So
Yeah, I have a very
Yeah.
different relationship with it because I didn't see it until I was 30. But
right.
it still has that effect. Like it still had that effect on me where I immediately recalled how much it sucked to move as a kid because I had to move
Yeah, you did
several
too. I
times.
remember that fucking party.
Well, yeah, well, I mean that was
horrible.
because I had to move once after high school, but I mean I moved right in the middle of 7th grade as well, and um I had to completely uproot where I had lived for 12 years, my very formative years, and then obviously I wouldn't have met Andrew, I wouldn't have met my boy Kyle, I wouldn't have met
Right.
I wouldn't be on this podcast if not for
No,
that. But at the
course.
time it was like life altering. It was horrible, and so yeah, I mean even that stuff, it was so instantly relatable watching Spirited Away. But also it's like, being 30 when I watched it, I also had the advantage of seeing, knowing of Miyazaki as an artist, having an adult understanding of him and a small amount of his work, but also just seeing his influences and just seeing how intentionally different Spirited Away is from any other big studio animated film from the time, or really from any time after that has come out of the West. I mean, we didn't start putting feelings in movies until like 2005 in the United States. So,
Sure.
Miyazaki was meditating on some serious stuff in Spirited Away under the, and when you grow up in the United States, you're just like, oh, what is this, like a movie for girls? What am I going to watch, a girl
for
movie?
kids. Yeah.
By some Japanese people? Like, no, I'm going to watch Titan AE and I'm going to listen to butt rock. So,
Smash Mouth.
yeah, like
Who? Yeah, their reputation was, well, dare I say, ruined by Shrek. I remember they were pissed about Shrek, like popularizing them. We're more than Shrek, and it's like, no, you're fucking not.
That's the double-edged sword, right? Like, I don't think they would have had any cultural cachet if not for Shrek. Smash Mouth lives on.
Smash Mouth, that stupid fucking song still plays at my goddamn rock climbing gym.
Now I would love to recut Spirited Away so that it ends with a Smash Mouth song, an emotional Smash Mouth song.
Yeah, one of their more emotionally resonant Smash
No,
Mouths.
you just play the acoustic version of All Star.
acoustic All Star.
The acoustic cover of All Star.
It
So
applies,
Taylor, what do
it
you
applies
think?
to anything.
Yeah, what do you think about it? You've been majorly silent.
I think
Let's
that
hear it.
movie is one of the worst movies I've seen. No, I'm just kidding.
Cool, yeah, agreed.
I wanted to say that your description of the sequence really recontextualizes what I should be seeing out of that scene and makes me appreciate it. I want to watch it again. It's been a couple years since I've really sat and watched it with full 100% focus. I think I'm much more analytical than I used to be. What I want out of movies is much different. I think I have a better sense of taste and themes and stuff like that. So
I would be surprised if this movie didn't make your top 3 on rewatch. Just like being more who you are now. You personally have gone through a bit of transformations over the last couple of years. So like you said, you are more analytical now and you're much more understanding of things now. I think if you rewatch this soon, I bet it will be, if not top 3, like top 5.
What I would tell you, Kyle, is that it isn't on my top 3 because I didn't want to put 2 Ghibli films on it.
I did the same. I did the same
because
thing,
I'll be honest, my actual like number 4, I have one I'm deeply sad I couldn't talk about. Is Your Name, is an animated film that
I forgot about that.
Brought me to tears. It is the most like romance normally doesn't do much for me, especially in animated stuff. But that story, I was just so it was like I was 12-year-old like reading it. I don't know. It was so moving. But I don't know if it holds up. I watched it one time and it was incredible, and I haven't touched it since. But I've thought about it nonstop, so that's why I didn't make my list.
Yeah, okay.
But I also feel bad that I didn't think of anything outside of anime or just animation. Just 2D animation in general, I guess, is really the only metric I kind of thought of when this was said.
No, you said The Incredibles. You were there.
I guess that is. It's weird. Is like I forgot it talked about Pixar. Yeah, but when I always think of my favorites, I always think 2D at least.
Well, so yeah. Other than potentially rewatching Spirited Away in new context, that all you had to add to it. I know me and Jake talked ad nauseum here just now about it.
I don't have any. No new special insights. This is a long discussion, so no, I didn't feel like just saying the same things you guys did. Other than like, yes, I agree. This is all. I'm
nice.
with you.
No, I mean that's good to have on record. That's what I was waiting for. If you didn't say yes, I agree. Gonna have to add another thing to the conversation we're supposed to have later about our relationship.
Oh no.
Callback. So, yeah. We hit them all. We got them all done. That's it, right?
I mean, just lightning round real quick. I just want to mention a couple and not even talk about them.
Yeah.
Monsters Inc. Monsters Inc.
Oh, okay. So close. That was,
Toy Story 1 and 2, of course. Tarzan.
Wall-E
1999 Tarzan.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Directed by the same guy who directed a Goofy movie, Kevin Lima. Heavy Metal from the 80s, a really great adult sci-fi movie, not made for children. Not made for children.
There's boobies.
There are boobies and lasers and horrific body meltings.
Don't they like reference that in like some South Park thing? It's like
I've never seen South Park before,
Jesus
so I don't
Christ, you guys are useless. All right, I'm gonna look up this movie because I'm pretty sure that's what I think of it.
The Lion King, and just for fun, just throw in the Robert Zemeckis Beowulf movie, technically animated.
Oh my god, dude, you motherfucker! That is seriously one of my favorite animated movies.
I legitimately love it.
So fucking good, Taylor.
Wow. And it's also now tainted by being written by Neil Gaiman, which fucking sucks. But
that does suck. Yeah, fucking creep piece of shit.
Yeah,
I
literal
saw it
rapist.
In theaters before I understood what the story that
Kyle and I saw it together.
Yeah.
What, really?
In 2007.
I think we saw it with Andrew too, wasn't it?
It was his birthday.
Yeah. I remember.
Honestly, Taylor might have been there.
Yeah, that must because I saw it in theaters. Why would we both have seen it separately?
I remember
one. You probably were
because you brought up because I remember I made some stupid child joke about your diabetes and you chastised me for it.
That sounds like I was also a dick back then too.
We were both being dicks to each other, but like
that sounds about right.
That was
holy shit.
Literally, maybe the last. Actually, maybe that was the last time I saw you. It was 2007 at Beowulf in the theater.
Yeah.
Anyways,
man,
great old.
And Taylor, I forgot
capture.
You definitely so Beowulf is incredible.
Yes.
I remember as a kid you watch it and you go like, "Ooh, that was a cool action movie," and you get to see a fake CGI body Angelina Jolie, like almost see some boobs in it. It was like tantalizing. But as an actual movie, I rewatched it only a year or two ago, and I was floored by how good it is. First of all, it looks beautiful.
Yep,
I can't believe how good it looks.
It's the best looking Robert Zemeckis motion capture movie by a country mile.
And, like, it's got great pacing, and you like the characters, and the action is really cool, and it's so weird and unique in the realm of fantasy kind of movies that it just feels different, but God, is it cool and entertaining, and
it's a really fantastic, like, it's not a subversion of the story of Beowulf, but it is not just a straight, here's the story of Beowulf. It's what if Beowulf existed in actual first century Scandinavia, and there were weird, horrific, deformed mythical beasts. And
it's grounded, right? Instead of just being a fake character in a fake world, just kind of a tale to tell. It's like, no, wait, what if Beowulf was real?
Yeah, it's like, what if this was the real story behind the myth that we then, read? Sort of deal, without being too in your face about that aspect. I appreciated that. I thought that was really cool. Because I remember I remember reading Beowulf actually years after seeing the movie, because it's like, you don't read Beowulf for real until like high school or whatever.
Right.
So this came out when I was in middle school, and then or when I was like a freshman in high school maybe, and then I saw it, and then I read it maybe a year or two later and was like, oh, this actually makes the movie way more cool.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be real. Who's a diehard Beowulf stan that's going to be mad if it diverts from the story? Like, nobody knows. But the thing is, it follows the story roughly enough and pretty accurately in most senses that it's still great. It's not one of those stories where you're like, oh, it was a really poor adaptation. They changed way too much. It's like, no, it still kind of hits all the same beats, but it's just cool.
Yeah,
it's just well done.
A genuinely clever and artful film that. Even though it's being made with like a gimmick by a kind of a gimmick filmmaker, like it has such a strong cast, and it's so tonally cool.
Oh my god,
Ray Winstone and Brendan Gleeson and Robert Wright, Robin Wright, and John Malkovich and fucking Anthony Hopkins and Crispin Glover as Grendel. Like, what? It's like so cool,
all-star.
But it's also got an incredible score. Also, another
Taylor,
movie with an amazing score.
Rewatch Spirited Away and rewatch Beowulf. That should be your assignments. You could watch Gladiator 2 if you wanted to have a trio get back together and talk about it.
Honestly, dude, I'm almost.
You didn't even like the first one, did you?
No, I do. I'm almost on principle anti-sequel 20 years later. You don't have a new story.
Tricked.
Fuck you.
I keep getting fucking tricked thinking these movies are going to be good, and they're always shit. Stupid ass Jake here gave it a 4 out of 5 and a heart on Letterboxd.
I think it's better than the first. I think it's better than the original.
Dude, your brain is fucking broken.
Nope.
Shut up.
I can justify
my God.
it. I will go to bat for Ridley Scott. I will die.
It is worse in every single conceivable way. It looks fucking horrible.
No.
The shots are bad. There's so much CGI. The story is almost identical, but worse in every way.
It's actually better.
Yeah, good counterpoint.
It's crazy. It's crazy how it's none of the things you're saying.
God.
It's actually it's actually
Jake,
not true.
I just want to let you know that sometimes I'll get into conversations with Kyle. We're in those positions, but he comes at me with these objective statements of, the thing is objectively bad. I'm like, well, I don't know how to argue that. I guess you won.
Well, you just have to say, actually, that's not true. It's
actually good. And there we go.
It's objectively the other way. So now what, bitch?
Yeah, it's immovable force versus an unstoppable object.
I do 99.99 million damage plus 1. So
shit.
And I teleport behind you.
Infinity damage plus 1, you idiot.
Yeah.
I did.
So just
damage.
Wow.
A little taste for the audience of what our Gladiator episode would sound like is just a lot of bickering back and forth.
And I would be laughing in the background. So honestly, it sounds like.
But I will ride or die for my boy Ridley. I will die
he's
by
amazing.
that sword.
Is he though?
Of course.
Even when he misses, I think he's a cool dude.
Okay.
He's the meanest motherfucker.
In the last 10 years, Taylor, he has fallen off a cliff in quality.
I know,
after
that's
The Martian, he basically hasn't made a good movie. But before that, he
no,
has
no, no.
made genre-defining movies. I love that phrase, genre-defining. I use it a lot.
Yeah.
He has made genre-defining movies in almost every genre you can think of. There's Alien for horror sci-fi. Like he defined that genre. There's Blade Runner for cyberpunk stuff, sci-fi action movies. There's
He's made historical epics that have defined the genre: Kingdom of Heaven, Gladiator,
yeah, Gladiator,
The
Kingdom of Heaven.
Duelists.
My favorite
1492.
animated movie is Ridley Scott's filmography.
Every what?
My favorite animated movie is Ridley Scott's filmography. I agree.
That's right.
Oh,
We're still recording a podcast about favorite animated
Yep.
movies.
This is the-
true.
It's the epilogue. It's fine.
Tangents. But anyways, yeah, no, Ridley Scott has released
His
undoubtedly some of the best
War
movies ever made.
films, character dramas.
Yeah, he's touched every genre and every kind of film. He's great, but in the last decade, he sucks ass, and he's gotten really lazy, which is extremely apparent in Gladiator, by the way. The cuts where it's like very obvious he filmed this with 3 or 4 or 5 cameras at once and just like took different angles instead of actually doing what filmmakers are supposed to do. And like, anyways,
see, you complain about this, but these all apply to the movies you like too.
no, they
These
don't apply to
all
Gladiator.
yes, they do. Gladiator, Black Hawk Down,
No.
Matchstick Men, The Martian, Body of Lies. Anything he's made since about 1992 has been made the same way. So he's a very smart man. He's a very pragmatic filmmaker.
The superior
just do-
position is, no matter what you say, is actually wrong.
We should just do a whole Ridley Scott episode.
I'm very interested
Yeah,
to
that
hear
could be.
stab each other. This is fun.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
alright.
in the safe zone.
Put us in the
Anyways.
octagon, cage match. I'm here for
Yeah.
it. But yes,
So animated movies, yeah, we
love those
went through them
animated
all.
films.
Yeah,
we
we do.
They mean a lot
Yeah.
to us.
We are kind of normies with the animated movies. I do feel bad we didn't like.
I
Taylor,
need to
I want to
watch
know
more.
what Justin's favorite animated movies are. He's been into anime for much longer than us, and he would probably name obscure movies that we don't know.
We'll
but
have to come back for round 2 and talk some.
I guess there's like 2 normie versions. There's like the normie who loves anime, like our stepbrother Justin, and then there's normies like us who have watched all the Hallmark animated movies.
You know, the Pixars, the Disneys.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Where,
popular
like,
Ghibli.
all of our movies were intersected and shared with one another.
Except
on
for
our lists
mine.
Because true, yours was wholly unique.
I was trying to
Yeah.
avoid the big ones. You know, obviously that's hard when you're talking favorites, but
I just had to be true to myself, and
that's
say,
why
I didn't care what you guys said. Spirited Away is my number 1, and The Incredibles is my number 2, and the number 3 could have been swapped out for whatever.
Well,
Yeah. Anyways,
it was
for
good
the
talk.
third, anyways, time. Great.
It was good.
It
was
was good.
I liked hearing your guys' favorites. I will be watching more Studio Ghibli and specifically Miyazaki to make
Yeah,
up
I'm gonna
blind spots.
watch Pompoko for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely recommend that
I've
one.
never seen it.
if
Sounds
any.
great.
And revisiting a Goofy movie, man, with the
Yeah.
things I said in mind, I'm telling you, it may not be like a mind-blowing experience, but it will be very entertaining. It's very funny.
Unique.
And there is some genuinely great animation in that movie, I will say. There is a scene that will, every time I watch it, it makes me want to eat pizza. It might be my favorite. You know how Ghibli movies always have, like, the food?
Yeah,
A Goofy movie is my version of that. There's a scene with the best animated pizza I've ever seen, maybe in a movie, that makes me want really
man.
cheesy pizza.
Just talking about that makes me want cheesy pizza right now. I'm so hungry.
So,
Damn,
beautiful.
nice.
And
All
we
right,
actually
well,
recorded and didn't crash. And
yeah, no, made it through the whole thing. That was
I'm
great.
excited.
All
I'm
right,
excited.
wrapping it up here.
All right.
Great app. Hope you guys listen. Love you all. See you later.
Bye.
Watch movies.